Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me in the back okay? Sounding good. Well, it's been a great session so far, so I appreciate everybody coming out. As always, none of this happens without financial backing, so I do want to say a special appreciation to all the sponsors that made this possible. And are there any volunteers in the room? Raise your hand. Clap. Thank you, guys. This doesn't happen without people in the background spending hours of work that you never see to allow us to come here today. For me, this is the most exciting time in human history for me. As an entrepreneur and a product manager, I can't tell you, I feel like a kid in a candy store. And what we're going through is almost unimaginable. Every part of global GDP is up for disruption. And that's from Vinod Khosla, who's the co-founder of Sun Microsystems and has been a visionary in the entrepreneurial space for 50 years. He's only worth $5.2 billion personally, so he's got a good vision. You know, in 1971, we got the microprocessor, and from that, you got the personal computing era. And companies like Microsoft and Apple and Dell and Compaq dominated the landscape for 30 years. I was a freshman in computer engineering when Mark Andreessen dropped the Mosaic web browser. When I saw the web browser in January of 1993, I knew it was going to transform everything that we do. And now the way that we learn, the way that we work, the way that we buy is completely different than it was 30 years ago. Of course, in 2007, we got mobile computing, and the App Store and the Android App Store is still booming. So you have a mobile app industry that's still growing. And then in 2022 in November, we all got to see generative AI in action, accessible to millions of people. And this generative AI is, in my opinion, is going to basically be the most powerful platform in human history. And so now the question is, as product managers, right, what are we going to do with that? Well, when I think about AI, AI is different for a couple reasons. When we think about mobile and web, it was all about distribution. It extended our reach to touch people, right? But AI gives us the ability to create. It transformed creation. And so it's a totally different problem, a totally different opportunity. So the question is, what are you going to do with this, right? Because it's product managers who are going to usher in the next products that are going to, frankly, change the world. And so I had the opportunity about 8 days ago. I got an invitation to go to Silicon Valley and sit down with some of the brightest minds and best product managers. And so I took copious notes. It's the best technical conference I've ever been to. So I just want to share with you a couple of the takeaways from some of those talks. The first was from Tomer Cohen, who's the Chief Product Officer at LinkedIn. And of course, you know, starting with the basics of being product-led. And so specifically with AI, what does this mean? Well, it's the time-honored tradition of Stephen Covey starting with the end in mind and working backwards. So his key thing is just work backwards. Find the problem, right, and work backwards and craft your roadmap. So there's no magic in that, but especially in startups or even in companies that are mature, you need to probably go back to your core problem and think about it brand new, thinking about it with AI. And that's going to give the opportunity to maybe make a disruptive breakthrough. The other side of that is somebody else is coming after you doing that. So if you do have that mature product, you need to understand how you're going to protect yourself. The second is driving clarity. I put this in red because as a product manager, if there's one thing that you have to do, it's drive clarity. It's driving clarity on your roadmaps. It's driving clarity on your financials. It's driving clarity on your metrics. It's driving clarity on your messaging. It's driving clarity to resolve differences between team members. It's driving clarity on what problems you're trying to solve. And so this, for me, is the one key takeaway that product managers have to do well. This is one of my favorite quotes from Patrick Lencioni. Healthy organizations believe that performance management is almost exclusively about eliminating confusion. Eliminating confusion is about driving clarity. And actually, Tomer, I think, said it best. We might be wrong, but we're not confused, right? Have conviction of clarity of where you're going to drive the organization. It's better to be wrong and be decisive than to have ambiguity. Ambiguity will kill you. If you're wrong, you're going to get feedback from the market, course correct, and keep moving. Next is you've got to create community. And this is from Mark Suster, who runs Upfront Ventures. And no matter what you're building, you need community. And that's why we're here at Product Camp, because we're a community of product managers to help each other. And some of the tactics that I heard in the session are, if you're building community around your product, and I specialize in enterprise SaaS, is basically three things. You can have user-generated community, find a way to get your users working together. The second is you can have data-driven content that you're driving. And the third is you can then have curated content. And so depending on the size of your organization, you need to be thinking about how do you do this cost effectively. And one of the tips that they gave us is your medium does matter. So your audio and text are different, right? It's a lot less expensive to run community using audio and text. Video is a fantastic medium, but be prepared to invest a little bit more time in that. This tip is discern ocean versus waves, and this is from Karen Maroney, who used to run Facebook's international communication. And so she defined ocean and waves, and ocean is who you are as a company, right? So for Facebook, that's connecting users. Waves are different trends in the marketplace. Like mobile was a big trend for Facebook in 2012. Right? So mobile doesn't change the way that Facebook thinks about creating a community of people, but they did have to deal with mobile. And so as they thought about that, it's like, okay, how do we communicate and change our direction? Because frankly, Facebook's mobile platform in 2012 was terrible. So Mark Zuckerberg stepped back and said, okay, we're going to be a mobile-first company. So as a product leader, you got to say it. You got to establish what it is that you're doing. We're going to be mobile first. But saying it doesn't matter, right? It's where you start, but you've got to then align the organization. And the way that Mark aligned his organization is he personally had to approve every product leaving Facebook. And he's only going to look at products if it's on a mobile phone. So guess what? All their little desktop apps disappeared. And all of a sudden, the focus was 100% mobile because a product manager couldn't get a product out the door unless Mark approved it. This is from Bar Moses. She is a great speaker, but very opinionated. Watch her YouTube videos. She runs Monte Carlo. And her advice was, don't listen to advice. Now, really, you can translate that as to don't listen to the noise. And what she means by that is when you think of solving problems, listen to your data, right? The market will tell you what's happening through how they write checks. Listen to your customers. So pragmatic marketing, all your management says go out and get out of the four walls of the building, go listen and talk to people. And then listen to your gut, right? There's an instinct inside of product managers where you just have a sense of what's going to be next. And so you need to listen to that, but do it through the lens of your data and your customers. Christina, CEO of Vanta, create a sense of the health of the business for your team. And so this is particularly around your financials. The team needs to understand how you are performing financially, right? So we're in an economic environment right now where we've seen thousands of layoffs, right? And so what we need to be able to do as product managers is understand where are we with our cash flow? How are we doing with our revenue? What are the key metrics of the health of this business? And you need to build that into the DNA with frequent communication so people know, do I need to accelerate spend in marketing, or do I need to be more cautious in how I'm doing that? And it needs to be intrinsically into the DNA of how people perform so they're not guessing. Focus on outcomes over output. And so, we heard this actually earlier today. And so you've got the difference between project management and product management. And the example here is with a company called, basically, I think Public, where they're shrinking the time to go get companies listed on the public marketplace. All right. And so they were redoing their interface, and they had a project team. It's like, okay, we need to convert 10 screens every week for 20 weeks, and get 400 screens done. Well, they're missing the whole point, right? The point is, how do you shrink the time to get people to market, right? And so here the example is you cut your listing times by 2 weeks is the objective measure that you need to run. Don't worry about the project management side of like counting your screens. So make sure you got the right metric. So just in a quick summary, you got 7 key points that I took away. Be product-led, which means start with the end in mind. Build a vision of where you're going, put that into something that people can understand, and then march toward that. Right? Second is drive clarity, and for me, is the number one thing that any product manager can do across an organization. Number 3, create community. With AI, you're going to see total disruption in how software development is done. Right? And so building a moat around your product using people in community is one of your key differentiators. The cost of software it's not going to go to zero, but it's heading that direction. Discern oceans versus waves, understanding who it is you are as a company, your values and the product that you have versus the trend. So AI is a hot trend, obviously. So how do you react to that? Don't listen. I'm going to change that. Don't listen to advice. There's wisdom in a multitude of counsel. Go get counsel, go get advice, but don't listen to the noise. Focus on your data, focus on your customers, and then think about the right metrics, and then create a sense of the financial health of the business for your teams. So those are my 7 key takeaways. I'll pause, see if there are any questions, but because I've been playing in the AI space, and this is a product management camp, I'll take a few minutes and just show you some of the demos in ChatGPT that I've been working on just to create some conversation. So what I'm going to do, how many people are using ChatGPT daily? It's about 20%. How many people have not used it at all? Couple. How many people used it and it's like, this isn't working for me? So those that didn't, if you're not using it daily, why are you not using it daily? Not allowed to. Okay. Okay. So one thing is, if you are in the ChatGPT interface, that does train their models. So don't put any intellectual property in there you don't want to go out the door. If you want to do that, you got to go off in the API and pay for that. But what I'm going to do is, as I was playing with this, I'm just going to walk you through a process of a product I used to manage a few years ago. Right? Is anybody in here using Scaled Agile Framework or SAFe? A couple. All right. So I'm going to go into ChatGPT. I'm going to see if you can see this, and we'll just walk through a couple things. All right, here's one we can look at. So a safe product owner. If you're a product manager, you're typically working with a product owner who's going to drive things to completion. So they're on the tech development side. So if you're able to see this, I'm asking this to take the role of a safe product owner. It knows exactly what a safe product owner is, how they work, how it works within Safe Agile. So I'm like, okay, that's terrific. I used to manage a product called P2 Ideas. It's an international joint venture accounting product for oil and gas. So like ExxonMobil was our largest customer. And so I then told it, hey, I want to teach you about my product called Ideas. And so I dump in all the information off of our website, just the publicly facing information on Ideas. So now it knows that it's a product owner, it knows Scaled Agile Framework, and it knows everything about international oil and gas and my particular product. So I'm like, okay, this is fantastic. So now I've got my automated product owner. Then the major personas that I use in my product are CFO, controller, accounts payable, all the people in the accounting world. And so now it's like, okay, great. I know everything about these personas and how they use your product, and I understand Scaled Agile Framework. You got it. So now what you can do is I can ask it to outline the top features for me on what I need on my product. So I put together a business case for our organization to build a supplier portal on top of our accounting system, because I've got thousands and thousands of vendors that serve the oil and gas community. So it then outlined what I need to do for my supplier portal, outlines these features. I can then tell it to elaborate the feature, right, using the template that I created that I like to use for my feature development. Creates all the elaboration of the feature detail. I can have it write the user story. For feature 1. It's going to go ahead and write that for me using user story language, and then I can convert the user story to Gherkin. Anybody use Gherkin? Anybody know what Gherkin is? So Gherkin is a technical syntax that you can throw into Azure DevOps and other things that prepares you to write the code. I'm like, okay, now that I've got my user story translated into Gherkin, convert that to C#. Great. Now I've got my namespace for P2 ideas and my VAT management going off of a positioning document that I created for a brand new business that generated my features, that generated the marketing and the landing page and everything. So there are a lot of holes in this, but I'm telling you, it's super early in the process. It's getting exponentially better every day. Has anybody played with one-shot learning in ChatGPT? Anybody know it? Anybody? Who doesn't know what one-shot learning is? Okay, one-shot learning is where you can go in and you feed it one example of what you do. So like over 25 years of running SaaS, I have templates for positioning statements, epic hypotheses, lean business cases, feature templates, marketing information. I feed it one example out of my library and tell it to replicate it for a brand new product. It does it. And it's like almost perfect, right? So that's one-shot learning. The other trick that I've learned is you can tell it to correct itself. Has anybody seen the videos where it makes a mistake and then you tell it to correct itself? So tell it to write a poem starting every line with the letter E, right? It gets everything right except one line starts with the letter A. And then you just say, did you meet the requirement? It analyzes itself, says, sorry, I didn't meet the requirement, I fixed it, and now it's correct. So just by saying, did you meet the requirement 3 times, you get an 80% better, 60 to 80% better accuracy coming back from the system. Now, if you're a computer scientist, right, that's freaky good, because this thing can now talk to itself to improve itself. Anybody heard of AutoGPT? Who has not heard of AutoGPT? It's an open source product, came out about 2.5 weeks ago. Somebody put together a cool little demo. They actually had you can create 2 bots, and you say, my goal is to write a game. Simple user interface for tic-tac-toe or some kind of guessing game. I want you to play 2 roles, product manager and a developer. He then just basically puts those off, and they just start running, continuous model, no human intervention, and guess what happens at the end of that? You got a piece of software that is a game that works, that you can launch off your computer, all right? So, and this is like day 1 of what we're going to go into, all right? So medicine, defense, software development, product management, everything is going to change, right? So you got to figure out, how. I have no idea how we're going to all adapt, right? But I'd rather be on the front end of that than on the tail end. So I'll pause there and see if there are any questions on ChatGPT or AI in general.
Do you trust ChatGPT enough to actually run the code you generate?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. And here's why. I've tried it. Go in there and tell it to write a Python script to run the, to calculate the volume under a curve, and then tell it to write the unit test to make sure that the code that it just wrote are correct. It's perfect. Question in the back.
What is the URLs for one-shot learning? Because I'm having trouble.
So you could probably just Google one-shot learning, but inside of ChatGPT, Just say, okay, the key word that I like to use is, I'm going to feed you an example. I'm going to feed you an example of my feature template. I'm pretty type A. I have a template I use for everything, for my meetings, meeting purpose, desired outcome, proposed agenda, right, resources. And so I just feed it my template, and I tell it to go create a meeting invite using my template, and boom, it spits out my template, and it's perfect. Yeah, thinks through the times of what we need to spend on, how much time, and all this stuff. Any other questions?
You said it can make answers better. Is that by asking it, make it better, concise? Is that how you go about it?
Yeah, what's fascinating is because of the natural language, and it's basically this model, it feeds in and creates generative content. Just by saying, did you meet the requirement, it looks at the initial requirement that you gave it, analyzes it against the content that it created, and then tries to reconcile that. Yeah. Yes?
What have you needed to correct it on? What kinds of things have you corrected?
So it would be getting more accurate answers. So could be content generation. I didn't do this. One of the examples I saw, write a math test that's multiple choice, and in the multiple choice answers, every answer should be unique. Well, it's a 10-question test. Question number 7, option A was 1/2, option C was 2/4. Same answer, right? Just reduction of the fraction. Didn't catch that. Did you meet the requirement? It scans all its stuff, scans its answers, and it's like, sorry, question 7, I had the same answer twice. Sorry about that. It corrected it. Bingo. Get smarter. And guess what happens when computers, and you put them in a recursive loop and they get smarter? It's pretty darn good. Yeah.
So earlier you said, like for your meeting invite, you said the result was perfect. Did you mean the result aligned with what I personally would have written?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does it have the ability, can you ask it, say, how can we make this more powerful, and does it make any recommendations?
Absolutely. Yeah. So take a business idea. So if you're running any business, and go ask it, just tell it, I run this business, give me ideas on how to improve my business. And you'll get the ideas. And you're like, expand on number 2, and then just talk to it like it's a consultant. The other key word that I found is take the role of. Take the role of a safe product owner. Take the role of an attorney. Take the role of an emergency room physician. Take the role of a PhD oil and gas engineer. I've run every single one of these. And they're great. Once you tell it to take the role, it's going to give you much more accurate results. I got 5 minutes left.
So I listened to this quote recently that said AI won't replace you, but product managers who are using AI will replace you.
Yep.
I'm curious, what other tools are you using within AI to kind of get a leg up on these?
So I'm exploring a lot. So I'm paying for Synthesia. I'm paying for ChatGPT Plus. I'm paying for DID. I'm paying for 11 Labs. Those are at least 4 subscriptions I'm paying for right now. So I've got 4 kids, ages 9 to 16. And tell your parents this, tell your kids this. The onslaught of fake videos and fake voice is coming, right? And so in 10 minutes, reading a 1-minute passage, I replicated my voice from a still photo, then created a video of me giving a presentation with my fake video with my fake voice in like 10 seconds. So you can go to my blog and watch me do it, right? Using this stuff. It's crazy, right? Because I've got to tell my kids, like, look, if you get anything coming into your social media, it's fake. From today on, just consider it to be fake. Yes?
Oh, and I was about to ask, did they say anything at the conference that you were at about the ethics of using ChatGPT?
Totally. So it's going to be huge, right? Ethics, regulation, these are all the things that we're going to have to figure out as a human society. Yeah. So we're working through all that. Quality control is something I heard. Like, how do you do quality control around an AI engine? So you're going to have, my personal belief is you'll have, two bots that kind of monitor each other, right? And you'll have expected output and a lot of human intervention. Yeah.
You mentioned all the AI tools. How does it compare to Bard, Google's Bard?
I'm on Bard's wait list. I haven't had an opportunity to use Bard a lot yet. Yeah, but I suspect those will be tic-tac back and forth.
I would say
Yeah.
Google, and it does not end in 2021.
Yeah.
So you can kind of use this to change your way. That's my take.
Yeah, so Bing Chat is open. It uses ChatGPT 4. Plugins for ChatGPT are coming, so it's going to have access to the web in like 10 days. So for me, I'm like all those little things that people are like, this or that, all that's going to be easily solved. I'm looking at like 10 years macro problem. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah, so addressing bias is huge because it's only going to be as good as the data you feed it. So you're going to have monitoring tools around that. So I think this is where the regulation comes in. This is where quality control comes in. You're going to have sample testing, right? So I did 17 years in pharmaceutical life science. So the drugs that we take, we wrote the software that collects the data on the patients to make sure that we can stay safe. And so same thing, you get a lot of checks and balances through that whole process. It's going to be the same for AI. I think I'm not I'm a free market guy. I like to let that run, but this is one scenario where I'm like, okay, you need some checks and balances because of the power of the tool, no doubt. Yes, sir.
What are your top 3 product management things that you completely depend on AI for that you don't do without AI?
I'm in a small startup right now. I'm helping them. I'm looking to pivot a couple products. So we've got a product. It's a great little product, but it's a shrinking TAM, right? So if you're a product manager, I'm looking out at shrinking TAM. It's not a healthy place to be. So we're looking to pivot that, and I'm looking at different, basically industries I'm not familiar with. So all my templates, I just fed it in there, and then I prompt it, and it goes and it writes my lean business case. It writes my epic hypothesis statement. It outlines all my personas. It finds all my prospects. It finds all the competitors to those prospects. It writes out my basically a roadmap plan. So I just create those documents. What used to take me 4 hours, I can now do in 20 minutes. 80%. So I read every bit of word that comes out of it, and then it's pretty and this is all the fun, fluffy stuff. It's verbose, and it uses a bunch of words I wouldn't use. So I'm like, no, tell it to me like a 9th grader. Okay, great. Here's my example that I wrote from 2 years ago. Pattern it after that, and it just copies exactly what I do. I'm like, that's scary. Yeah, my 13-year-old, because I'm promoting this because these guys need to learn it. So he woke up. And he's like, you know what? I want to make some pancakes like with a special sauce. And he's like, give me some recipes for pancakes with these ingredients. And then he made a special sauce with his pancakes. It's great. I think I'm close to the buzzer, huh? All right, last question.
Did you eat the pancakes?
They were delicious. They were amazing. I'm like, dude, you got to cook more. This is great. Finally, you're getting useful. So. Well, thank you guys. Really appreciate that, and have a great afternoon. If you do, so I'm going on an adventure. I'm blogging about every tool I'm finding, all the craziness. So if you go to chriswilke.net, you can subscribe to the blog or just kind of watch what I'm doing there.